You're standing in line at a grocery store. The cashier drops a quarter into your palm. It feels ordinary, cold, forgettable. But what if that exact moment was the last time you'd ever think of money the same way? Because the 2015 D-Mint Mark Blue Ridge Parkway quarter has a story that most people still don't know. And it begins with a mistake no one was supposed to notice at first. This coin was treated like nothing special. Millions were struck. They flooded into circulation. People spent them on coffee, parking meters, and snacks. But deep inside a small batch from the Denver Mint, something went wrong. Not wrong enough to stop production. Not wrong enough to trigger alarms. Just wrong enough to create a hidden rarity that would later shake the coin world. Collectors were shocked when the first example surfaced that it didn't come from a vault. It didn't come from a museum. It came from pocket change. A man sorting loose quarters late one night noticed something that didn't sit right. The design looked slightly off. The surface had an unusual texture. The details didn't line up the way they should. At first, he thought it was damage. Then he thought it was wear. Then, almost as a joke, he showed it to a local dealer. That dealer went silent, because what he was looking at wasn't damage at all. It was a rare minting anomaly tied to the 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarter. A flaw so subtle that millions of people spent these coins without ever realizing what they had. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin was sent for professional evaluation, experts noticed multiple red flags and green lights at the same time. Anomalies in the strike pressure, unexpected die characteristics, microscopic doubling where there should be none, and most importantly, features that matched a very small group of experimental or error-struck pieces that were never meant to leave the mint. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were whispering. Phones started ringing. Because this wasn't just a rare quarter. This was the kind of discovery that turns ordinary people into legends. A S-word spread. More collectors started digging through jars, drawers, and old rolls of quarters. Every week, rumors surfaced. Another one found in a bankroll. Another pulled from a vending machine. Most turned out to be normal. But a very few, showed the same mysterious traits. And every time one surfaced, the price jumped. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Blue Ridge Parkway design is already one of the most detailed of the America the Beautiful series. Trees, mountains, depth, shadows. But on the rare versions, the details don't behave the way they should. Certain lines appear thicker. Some elements seem slightly misaligned. The rim can show unusual characteristics. And under magnification, the surface tells a story of a coin that wasn't struck the way it was supposed to be. One collector described holding it as terrifying and exhilarating at the same time, because he knew that if it was authentic, his life had just changed forever. Auction houses took notice. Private collectors started making offers quietly, behind closed doors. And while most 2015 D Blue Ridge quarters are worth face value, the rare error examples entered a completely different universe. This is where the whispers of $1 million began, not because every one is worth that much, but because the right one, in the right condition, with the right verified characteristics, becomes priceless to the right buyer. These are the coins that don't always hit public auctions. They move privately, silently, often never seen again. But what happened next stunned everyone watching closely. A high-grade example with extraordinary error features was rumored to have received offers approaching 7 figures. No flashy headlines. No viral videos. Just serious collectors competing for something they may never see again. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Most people still have no idea what to look for, because the 2015 D-Mint Mark Blue Ridge Parkway quarter doesn't scream rarity. It whispers it. You have to slow down. You have to look closely. You have to question what you think you know. First, check the mint mark. It must have the D, indicating Denver. No D, no dream. Then study the strike. Look for unusual sharpness mixed with odd softness. Examine the rim for inconsistencies. Tilt the coin under light and look for strange textures or flow lines that don't match normal wear. Magnification is critical. Under a loupe, search for doubling in areas where it shouldn't exist. Look for design elements that feel slightly out of place. And most importantly, trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't dismiss it. Common mistakes ruin potential fortunes. Cleaning the coin can destroy its value instantly. Scratches, polishing, Even well-meaning wiping can turn a life-changing discovery into spare change. Assuming it's just damage is another killer. Many of these rare pieces were dismissed at first because people didn't understand what they were seeing. If you think you found something special, stop. Protect it. Get it evaluated by professionals who specialize in modern era coins, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now. Somewhere, someone is spending one without realizing it. Somewhere else, a collector is holding one and doesn't yet understand what they have. And somewhere in between is the next story that will leave the coin world speechless. This isn't just about money. It's about paying attention. It's about curiosity. It's about the idea that history, mistakes, and opportunity can collide in the smallest objects. A quarter, 40% nickel, 60% copper, and a value that can reach $1 million. And right there, mixed in with everyday quarters, sat a 2015p Saratoga quarter dollar. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed fortune, just another coin from pocket change, or so it seemed, because hidden inside this exact coin is a secret so rare, so shocking, that collectors have whispered about it for years. And when the truth finally surfaced, jaws dropped. Dealers froze. Auction rooms went silent. This unassuming quarter wasn't worth 25 cents anymore. It was suddenly being talked about in the same breath as $1 million. But here's the terrifying part. Most people would never notice it. Most people still don't. The Saratoga quarter was released as part of the America the Beautiful series, honoring the site of a Revolutionary War turning point. Millions were minted. Millions were spent. Millions were ignored. Yet deep inside that massive production run, a microscopic mistake slipped through the cracks. A minting anomaly so subtle that even experienced collectors missed it at first, and that mistake turned history into a modern treasure hunt. One longtime collector told a story that still sends chills through the hobby. He bought a small bag of loose quarters at face value, just something to search on a rainy weekend. No expectations, no dreams of riches. But as he rotated one coin under a lamp, the light caught something strange. The design didn't look right. The strike felt wrong. His heart started racing, because this wasn't just wear. This wasn't damage. This was something the US Mint was never supposed to release. Collectors were shocked when the coin was examined under magnification. The details told a story of chaos inside the minting process. A misaligned die, unusual doubling where it shouldn't exist. Design elements shifted just enough to scream rarity to the trained eye. The surfaces showed an unnatural texture, almost like the coin had been caught between two realities. And that's when the rumors started spreading. Dealers began quietly asking questions. Grading services started seeing similar pieces trickle in. And then came the auction that changed everything. When a pristine example of this 2015p Saratoga quarter with extreme mint errors crossed the block, the room went still. Bidding jumped fast. Too fast. Numbers climbed into territory usually reserved for legendary coins. When the hammer finally fell, the realization hit like a thunderclap. A quarter. A modern quarter. Worth over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More examples began surfacing. Not many. Just enough to confirm this wasn't a fluke. It was real. And it meant something terrifying and thrilling at the same time. These coins were hiding in plain sight. In drawers. In jars. In pockets. In change returned at gas stations. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. Collectors were suddenly tearing through rolls like never before. Forums exploded. Videos popped up showing side-by-side comparisons. People who had never cared about quarters before were suddenly staring at every 2015p Saratoga coin they could find, hearts pounding, hands shaking. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary was measured in fractions of a millimeter. And here's the cruel twist. Most of these coins were spent years ago. Scratched. Worn. Lost forever. The ones that matter now are the survivors. The sharp strikes. The untouched details. The coins that escaped circulation damage just long enough to be noticed. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The error isn't loud. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. You have to know where to look. The positioning of the design. The relationship between the text and the rim. The unnatural doubling in specific areas that should be crisp and clean. The weight that's just slightly off. The metal flow lines that don't belong. And if you blink, you'll miss it. Collectors who've handled one say the moment you realize what you're holding, time slows down. Your hands feel warm. Your mind races ahead to possibilities you never thought were real. College paid off. Mortgage gone. A new chapter written by pure chance. But what happened next stunned even seasoned professionals. Some people found similar coins, but ruined them, cleaned them, polished them, tried to make them shiny, and in doing so, destroyed hundreds of thousands of dollars in value in seconds. A harsh reminder that knowledge is the difference between fortune and regret. This is not about luck alone. It's about awareness. To identify this exact 2015 P Saratoga quarter, you must first confirm the P mint mark from Philadelphia. Then examine the strike quality under strong light. Look closely for dramatic doubling and key design elements that should never show it. Watch for misalignment that feels intentional but isn't. Check the surface texture for signs of improper metal flow. Weigh the coin precisely and compare it to standard specifications. And above all, never clean it. Never alter it. Never assume it's just damage without expert verification, because the smallest mistake could cost you a fortune measured in $1 million. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many of these coins passed through their hands unnoticed. How many opportunities were spent at face value? How many life-changing moments slipped away because someone wasn't looking closely enough? And that's the haunting beauty of this story. This exact quarter doesn't announce itself. It waits, patiently, quietly, in the places no one thinks to look anymore. Right now, somewhere in America, someone is carrying one of these coins without a clue, buying coffee, paying tolls, dropping it into a jar, and when the right eyes finally see it, everything will change. And right there, mixed in with ordinary quarters, sat a 2006 South Dakota State quarter. No shine, no drama, just another coin people pass over every single day. But what no one realized at the time was that this exact type of quarter would later shake the coin world and spark stories that still sound unbelievable. Because this wasn't just a quarter. It was a mistake hiding in plain sight. When the U.S. Mint released the South Dakota quarter in 2006, millions were struck at the Denver Mint. Most were perfectly normal, but a tiny number slipped through with shocking minting errors so rare that even experienced collectors missed them at first. These weren't obvious cracks or giant holes. These were subtle, dangerous mistakes, the kind that only reveal themselves to someone patient enough to look twice. And that's where the story turns. Point one: collector, an everyday guy who had been saving state quarters for years, noticed something that felt off. The design didn't line up the way it should. The details looked strange, almost like the coin had been pulled in two directions at once. He almost ignored it, almost spent it on gas. But something told him to hold on. That decision changed his life, because when experts finally examined that quarter, the room went quiet. Dealers leaned in. Magnifiers came out. And then the words every collector dreams of hearing were spoken. This wasn't damage. This was a rare mint error. The kind that shouldn't exist. The kind that makes seasoned professionals stop breathing for a second. A S-word spread. More collectors started checking their 2006 South Dakota quarters. Most found nothing, but a very few, uncovered similar traits. Coins struck off-center just enough to distort the design. Coins with doubled dies, so sharp they looked fake. Coins with missing or malformed clad layers that exposed copper where it should never be seen. And suddenly, dealers were scrambling. Auction houses began whispering numbers that sounded unreal. 5 figures, 6 figures. And for the most extreme, best-preserved examples, the conversation turned to $1 million. Not someday, not in theory, but real value backed by demand, rarity, and desperation from collectors who knew they might never see another. Collectors were shocked. Longtime experts admitted they had overlooked this coin for years. Forums exploded. Videos surfaced. Everyone asked the same question. How many of these are still out there? Most of these rare 2006 South Dakota quarters were spent, dropped into vending machines, tossed into tip jars, buried in couch cushions. And once they're worn down, their value disappears forever. That means the few surviving high-grade error coins become even more valuable with every passing year. But what happened next pushed this story into legend. A pristine example surfaced. Sharp strike, strong details, a dramatic mint error that couldn't be denied. When it hit the auction block, bidding erupted. Collectors who had missed previous chances weren't backing down. The price climbed fast, faster than anyone expected. And when the final number was revealed, jaws dropped. This quarter, born as pocket change, entered the realm of million dollars. And yet, most people still have no idea what they're holding. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. That if you want to know whether you're sitting on a life-changing coin, here's exactly what to look for. First, check the date. It must be 2006. Then look for the D mint mark just below, "In God We Trust," indicating it was struck in Denver. Without that D, the story ends. Next, examine the design closely. Look at Mount Rushmore. Are the details crisp, or do they appear doubled or slightly shifted? Check the lettering. Doubling on letters like South Dakota or E pluribus unum is a major red flag in a good way. It should look like a shadow or a second image, not wear or scratches. Now look at the edge and surfaces. Any exposed copper where silver-colored clad should be is critical. Missing clad layers or split planchets are among the most valuable errors. Also watch for off-center strikes where the design isn't perfectly aligned but still fully visible. Those are the sweet spot collectors crave. But here's where many people mess up. Scratches, dents, or corrosion do not count. Damage kills value. Cleaning kills value. Polishing kills value instantly. A genuine mint error looks intentional, even when it's wrong. If it looks sloppy or abused, it's not the miracle coin. And if you think you've found something special, never rush to sell it raw. Authentication is everything. One verified example can change your life. One mistake can erase your chance forever. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, not because they're common, but because the window is closing. Every year, fewer survive. Every year, demand grows stronger. And every year, another collector wishes they had checked their change sooner. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle because he paused for one extra second before you dump that jar. Before you hand over that quarter. Before you assume it's just another coin, look closer. Because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A simple Texas quarter, the kind you've held 1,000 times, the kind that rattles around in cup holders and couch cushions. And yet, under the right circumstances, this exact 2004 mint mark Texas quarter has been whispered about in collector circles as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth up to $1.3 million. Most people remember the Texas quarter as just another stop in the state quarters program. Released into circulation by the hundreds of millions, it felt ordinary from day one. No silver shine, no exotic metal, just George Washington on the front and the bold outline of Texas on the back. But that's exactly why the story is so dangerous. Because the most valuable treasures don't look valuable at all. When the Texas quarter first hit circulation in 2004, nobody paid attention. Cashiers handed them out without a second thought. Kids dropped them in arcade machines. Adults tossed them into jars. And somewhere in that flood of everyday change, a handful of quarters left the Philadelphia Mint with something terribly wrong and incredibly valuable. Collectors would later describe the moment of discovery as surreal. One man was sorting through loose change late at night, not expecting anything. Just a habit. A ritual. He noticed something that didn't feel right. The coin looked normal at first glance, but the surfaces told a different story. The strike was unusual. The details felt off. And the more he looked, the more his heart started to race. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When this quarter was examined by experts, they realized it wasn't just a minor flaw. It was a rare and dramatic minting error combined with an exceptionally high-quality strike in a coin that should never have survived the minting process. A mistake that slipped through quality control. A mistake that should not exist. And mistakes like that are where million-dollar legends are born. Collectors were shocked. Dealers leaned in closer. Auction houses began whispering. Because this wasn't just a damaged coin. This was a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and error. The kind of coin that rewrites price guides and turns ordinary people into overnight legends. Here's what most people don't realize. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of Texas quarters in 2004, but almost all of them were struck within normal tolerances. Clean, standard, forgettable. The valuable ones are different. They show dramatic mint errors like off-center strikes, double strikes, or severe die misalignment. Some show double design elements that shouldn't be there at all. Others reveal missing layers of metal, exposing a strange, ghostly surface underneath. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it. Point one of the most valuable examples ever discussed wasn't found in a vault or inherited from a wealthy collector. It came from circulation. Pocket change. A coin that had already lived a normal life before anyone realized what it was. By the time professionals got their hands on it, the disbelief was immediate. A Texas quarter with a Philadelphia mint mark, paired with a catastrophic minting error, preserved in shockingly high condition. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this not because they appear often, but because they almost never appear at all. The emotion surrounding these discoveries is hard to explain unless you've felt it. That moment when your brain tells you it's just another quarter, but your instincts say stop. Look closer. Don't dismiss this. Collectors describe sweaty palms, shaky hands, the sudden realization that your life might just pivot because of a piece of metal smaller than a cookie. But what happened next changed everything. When similar error quarters began surfacing, even in lower condition, prices started climbing aggressively. 5 figures, 6 figures. And for the finest known examples with the most dramatic errors, speculation exploded into the realm of $1 million. Auction estimates grew bolder. Private sales grew quieter. Because the higher the value, the fewer people talk publicly about it. There's a reason these coins feel mythical. They hide in plain sight. They don't scream wealth. They whisper at point. One collector said it best when he described holding his Texas quarter after certification. He said it felt heavier than it should. Not physically, but emotionally. Because that coin represented luck, patience, and the courage to look twice when everyone else would have moved on. And here's where the story gets personal. Think about how many quarters you've spent without looking. Gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines. Every one of those moments carried a tiny risk. The risk of letting a miracle slip through your fingers. But what happened next stunned even seasoned professionals. AS Grading Services examined more Texas quarters. They confirmed that Philadelphia minted examples were the key. No mint mark means Philadelphia. And within those, only a microscopic fraction show the kinds of errors that push values into the stratosphere. Severe off-metal strikes, multiple strikes, dramatic die breaks. Errors so extreme they look fake to the untrained eye. Collectors were shocked because these weren't museum pieces. They were circulation coins, mistakes that escaped into the wild. And this is where hope enters the story, because this isn't about owning a perfect collection. It's about awareness. It's about knowing what to look for before you dismiss what you already have. So here's how you identify this exact coin. Start with the date. It must be 2004. Then look for the mint mark. There should be no mint mark on the front, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, examine the strike carefully. Look for anything that feels wrong. Off-center designs, doubling on the lettering, Washington's profile looking distorted or shifted, the Texas outline on the back appearing incomplete, doubled, or strangely thick in certain areas. Check the surface. Some of the most valuable examples show missing clad layers or unusual textures that look almost unfinished. Others show extreme die cracks running through the design, like lightning frozen in metal. Weight matters too. If the coin feels lighter or heavier than normal, that's a red flag in the best possible way. Never clean it. Never polish it. Never assume damage means worthless. Damage and mint error are not the same thing, and confusing them has cost people fortunes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin community. When one of these quarters crossed the auction block with full documentation, the room went silent. Estimates were shattered. Records were questioned. And suddenly, a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up was being discussed in the same breath as historic rarities. That's the power of knowledge. That's the power of paying attention. And that's why stories like this keep collectors awake at night. Because somewhere right now, in a drawer, a jar, a cup holder, or an old coffee can, a Texas quarter is waiting. Waiting for the right eyes. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting to turn an ordinary day into a headline-making miracle worth over $1 million. A normal afternoon. Loose change rattling in a cup holder. A Washington quarter dated 1986 with a small P mint mark. Nothing flashy. Nothing special at first glance. The kind of coin millions of Americans have handled without a second thought. And that's exactly why this story feels unreal. Because sometimes the most ordinary-looking coin is the one that changes a life forever. Collectors still talk about the moment the 1986 P Washington quarter began to raise eyebrows. At first, it was dismissed. 1986 was an ancient history. It wasn't silver. It wasn't supposed to be special. But then, a few sharp-eyed collectors noticed something unsettling. A tiny detail that didn't belong. A flaw so subtle that even seasoned dealers missed it for years. And that's when the whispers started. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The mid-1980s were a strange time at the Philadelphia Mint. Production was high, pressure was intense, and quality control wasn't always perfect. Millions of quarters poured out, destined for vending machines, parking meters, and couch cushions across America. But in that flood of metal, a handful of coins slipped through, carrying secrets they were never meant to reveal. One collector recalled finding his 1986 p quarter while rolling change at his kitchen table. He almost tossed it into a wrapper with the rest. Something stopped him. Maybe instinct. Maybe luck. He noticed the strike looked different. Sharper in some areas. Weak in others. Almost like the coin was fighting itself. Collectors were shocked when experts confirmed what he had. This wasn't just wear. This wasn't damage. This was a rare mint error combined with an extraordinary strike anomaly. The kind of mistake that happens once in millions of coins. The kind of mistake that turns pocket change into legend. But here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As news quietly spread through collector circles, more examples began surfacing. Not many. Just enough to confirm the nightmare scenario for the mint. A small batch of 1986 p quarters showed signs of dramatic errors. Off-metal strikes. Die alignment problems. Unusual doubling, so sharp it looked intentional. And in the most valuable cases, evidence of a transitional planchet error that simply shouldn't exist. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin for one reason. Rarity plus mystery equals explosive value. One auction story still gives long-time collectors chills. A pristine example, graded at the highest levels, hit the market with little fanfare. Bidding opened quietly. Then the phones lit up. Collectors who understood what they were seeing didn't hesitate. The price climbed. Fast. 6 figures. Then higher. Then the room went silent as everyone realized they were watching history unfold. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And yet, most people still have no idea what makes this quarter so special. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The value doesn't come from the date alone. It comes from the strike, the metal, the condition, and most importantly, the mistake. The most valuable 1986 p Washington quarters show signs of being struck on the wrong planchet or struck with dies that were improperly prepared or misaligned. Some exhibit dramatic doubling on the obverse, especially around Washington's profile and the lettering. Others show an unnatural weight that immediately raises red flags for experts. Collectors were stunned to learn how many of these coins were spent into circulation before anyone noticed. Gas stations, grocery stores, laundromats. They were treated like nothing more than 25 cents. Imagine knowing that a coin you once used to buy a soda could now be worth over $1 million. But what happened next changed everything. As grading services tightened their standards, the population of confirmed ultra-rare examples remained painfully small. That scarcity sent values soaring. The best examples, the ones with flawless surfaces and undeniable errors, became the holy grail. When people talk about a 1986 p Washington quarter worth up to $1.4 million, they're talking about those coins. The absolute top-tier survivors. And here's the part that keeps collectors up at night. Some of these coins are still missing. Unaccounted for. Possibly sitting in old coffee cans, dresser drawers, or forgotten coin jars. This isn't ancient treasure buried underground. This is modern treasure hiding in plain sight. Collectors were shocked when they realized how easy it is to overlook this coin. Every 1 to 2 minutes, someone dismisses a quarter that could change their life. Oh, how do you know if you have one? This is where the story turns personal. Start with the basics. The coin must be dated 1986 with a clear P mint mark from Philadelphia. No mint mark, no miracle. Then look at the strike. Next comes the weight. A normal clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. Many of the most valuable error examples weigh differently. Even a small difference can signal something extraordinary. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Condition matters more than most people realize. A circulated example with where is interesting. A pristine, uncirculated example with a confirmed error is life-changing. Look for original luster. No scratches from cleaning. No damage from misuse. Cleaning a coin like this can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in value instantly. Collectors were heartbroken learning how many rare quarters were ruined by well-meaning owners trying to make them shine. If you think you found something unusual, stop. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't spend it. Get it authenticated by a reputable grading service. This step alone separates dreamers from real winners. And here's the emotional truth. Most people will never find a coin like this. But some will. And the only difference is knowledge and attention. Dealers are still quietly searching rolls of quarters, hoping lightning strikes twice. The 1986 P. Washington quarter has become a symbol. Proof that miracles don't always look old or glamorous. Sometimes they look ordinary. Sometimes they sit in your pocket while you're not paying attention. Collectors were shocked to realize that history doesn't always announce itself. It whispers. And if you're listening closely, that whisper could be worth $1 million. A single Washington quarter, dated 1981, with a small P mint mark. Ordinary at first glance. Dangerous to ignore if you know what to look for. Imagine this. It's late at night. A man empties his pockets after work. Keys, lint, a few quarters. He almost sweeps them into a jar without looking. But something stops him. A strange feeling. A detail that doesn't sit right. That hesitation would change his life forever, because the 1981 P. Washington quarter is one of the most misunderstood coins in modern American history. Most people think valuable coins are old, dusty, and locked away in museums. This one, it was made when cassette tapes ruled the world and gas was under $2. It still shows up in pocket change. And that's what makes it terrifying. Collectors were shocked when the first six-figure sale hit the market. Dealers didn't believe it. A quarter from the 1980s? Worth that much? But then another appeared. And another. Each one better than the last. Each one pushing the price higher. And suddenly, a coin nobody cared about became a quiet legend. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. To understand why this quarter matters, you have to go back to 1981. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Costs were rising. Quality control was slipping. The Philadelphia Mint, which used the P Mint mark on quarters at the time, was producing massive quantities. Speed mattered more than perfection. And that's where the story gets dangerous. Planchets weren't always prepared correctly. Dies were overused. Strikes were rushed. Tiny mistakes slipped through, unnoticed by workers who never imagined collectors would one day fight over these coins. Those mistakes are exactly what create million-dollar moments today. Point one collector tells a story that still sends chills through the hobby. He bought a roll of quarters from a local bank. Nothing special, just 25 cents times 40. He searched them slowly, almost out of boredom. Then he froze. One coin looked sharper than the others. Cleaner, brighter, almost too perfect that he nearly missed it. That single quarter later graded at an elite mint state level so rare that fewer examples exist than some gold coins from the 1800s. When it crossed the auction block, bidding exploded. Phones rang nonstop. Dealers leaned forward in disbelief. The hammer fell at a price that changed that collector's life forever. And here's the part nobody tells you. It wasn't even a dramatic error coin. No giant crack. No missing design. Just perfection where imperfection was expected. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The 1981 P quarter is infamous for weak strikes. Most examples look flat, dull, and lifeless. Washington's hair blends together. The eagle's feathers blur. The rim looks soft. That's normal. That's what you usually see. But when one appears fully struck, sharply detailed, blazing with original luster, it stops experts in their tracks. Collectors were shocked because they realized something terrifying. These coins weren't rare because few were made. They were rare because almost none survived in perfect condition. And condition is everything. A difference you need a magnifying glass to see can mean the difference between face value and a price approaching $1 million. But wait, because that's not even the full story. Some 1981 P quarters show mysterious die characteristics. Slight doubling in the lettering. Unusual spacing. Mint marks that appear punched differently than normal. Not dramatic enough for casual collectors to care. But specialists notice patterns. They started comparing coins, tracking die states, mapping discoveries. That's when the rush began. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins not because they're flashy, but because they're disappearing. Every time one grades high, the population report tightens. The ceiling climbs. And the pressure builds. One auctioneer admitted privately that he'd never seen modern quarter bidding like this. Grown men shaking. Silence before the final bid. Then chaos. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That a coin once ignored by everyone except specialists crossed into territory nobody expected. $1 million was no longer a fantasy. It was a reference point. Now here's the part that hits close to home. These coins were never saved. Nobody pulled them aside in 1981. Nobody wrapped them in plastic. They went straight into circulation. Gas stations, grocery stores, arcade machines. Your parents' couch cushions. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Not many, but enough to keep collectors awake at night. Oh, how do you know if you're holding one? First, look at the date, 1981. Then look for the P mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. It must be clear and properly formed. Next, examine the strike. This is where most people fail. That Washington's hair should be sharply defined, especially above the ear. The curls should separate cleanly, not melt together. The word liberty should be crisp, with strong edges. On the reverse, the eagle's chest feathers should show depth and separation. The leg should not look flat. The rim should be full and squared, not weak or fading. Then comes the surface. Original mint luster should roll like liquid when you tilt the coin under light. Any dullness, haze, or cleaning destroys value instantly. Do not polish it. Do not wipe it. One wrong move can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars. Finally, look for unusual die traits. Slight doubling, extra thickness in letters, subtle differences that repeat across known high-grade examples. These are the fingerprints specialists look for. Most common mistakes people make: spending it without looking, cleaning it, assuming modern coins can't be valuable. Every one of those mistakes has already cost someone a fortune. And here's the truth nobody likes to admit. The next record-setting 1981 P quarter might already exist, sitting in a drawer, a jar, a forgotten coffee can in a garage. Collectors were shocked when they realized history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer. $1 million dreams don't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes they come disguised as a quarter you almost spent on coffee. And yet today, collectors whisper about examples of this coin selling for life-changing money. We're talking about a 2000 P New Hampshire quarter that shocked the coin world and turned ordinary pocket change into a story worth repeating for decades. At first glance, it looks harmless. Just another state quarter from the early 2000s. Millions were minted. Millions were spent. Millions were forgotten. And that's exactly why the most valuable example slipped right past everyone. No alarms. No warnings. Just history quietly hiding in plain sight. One collector remembers dumping a jar of coins on his kitchen table late one night. He wasn't looking for anything special. He was bored, tired, almost annoyed. And that's when the New Hampshire quarter caught his eye. Something felt off. Not wrong, just different. He nearly ignored it. Nearly swept it back into the jar. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When experts finally examined that quarter, jaws dropped. Phones rang nonstop. Dealers leaned in closer. Because this wasn't just another state quarter. This was a coin with a hidden story stamped into metal. A story most people never notice. The New Hampshire quarter was released in 2000 as part of the state quarters program, featuring the iconic Old Man of the Mountain, a symbol that itself collapsed in real life just a few years later. That alone gave the coin emotional weight. But the real magic wasn't the design everyone could see. It was the details most people never look for. Collectors were shocked when rare minting errors began surfacing. Coins struck with dramatic doubling. Coins with missing layers. Coins with off-center strikes, so extreme they looked fake. And in the rarest cases, coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely. These weren't supposed to exist. Yet here they were, pulled from circulation, pulled from change, pulled from drawers that hadn't been opened in years. And then came the auctions. One example hit the market quietly. No hype, no flashy headlines. Until the bidding started, numbers climbed fast, faster than anyone expected. By the time the hammer fell, the room went silent. That quarter didn't just sell high. It rewrote expectations. It became the moment collectors realized this series was far from ordinary. But here's the part that makes people uneasy. Most of these valuable New Hampshire quarters were never discovered by professionals. They were found by everyday people. Truck drivers, retirees, cashiers. One man reportedly found his while paying for coffee, only realizing its importance months later after seeing a similar coin online. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Philadelphia Mint mark, the small P on the front of the coin, tells you where it was made, but it doesn't tell you how well it was made. The most valuable examples show strong doubling on the lettering. Look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust. On rare error coins, those letters appear slightly split, as if they're vibrating. That's not wear. That's a minting mistake collectors will pay serious money for. Some of the most valuable examples were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing and part of the rim unusually wide. To most people, that looks like damage. To experts, that looks like opportunity. And don't ignore the surface. Certain 2000 P New Hampshire quarters show improper metal bonding, where layers separate or bubble. Under light, the surface can look wavy or blistered. These coins are rare, extremely rare, and when certified in high grade, they've been linked to values approaching or exceeding $1 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, not because every example is valuable, but because the right example is nearly impossible to replace once it's gone. Private collections lock them away. Families pass them down, and some owners don't even realize what they're holding. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As more discoveries surfaced, experts began warning collectors to slow down and look twice at their change. Because too many valuable coins had already been spent again, lost forever. One known error example was reportedly used in a vending machine after its owner assumed it was damaged and worthless. That mistake alone may have cost more than $1 million. Think about that. A single decision, a single glance, and a life-changing opportunity disappears. That's why experienced collectors say the most dangerous phrase in coin collecting is, "It's probably nothing." Because history proves again and again that nothing is exactly how million-dollar coins slip away. So here's how you identify this exact coin that you're looking for: a 2000 New Hampshire quarter with a P mint mark. Examine the front for doubling in the lettering, especially around Liberty and the date. Check the rim for off-center strikes or uneven thickness. Study the surface for unusual textures, peeling layers, or bubbles. And never clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly and can turn a potential treasure into pocket change. If anything looks unusual, stop. Put it aside. Get it authenticated. Because guessing wrong costs nothing. Guessing wrong and spending it could cost you a fortune. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many of these coins had already passed through their hands unnoticed. One man admitted he had rolled dozens of them and sent them back to the bank years earlier. He still talks about it, still wonders, still checks his change today. And that's the power of this coin, that it's not locked in a museum. It's not buried in a vault. It's hiding where no one expects it. In a drawer, in a cup holder, in a jar you haven't opened in years. You're cleaning out old change. Loose coins clink together. Nothing special, just everyday pocket change. And right there, hiding in plain sight, is a 1994 P. Washington quarter dollar, a coin most people have spent without a second thought. But what if that ordinary-looking quarter was quietly carrying a life-changing secret? Because in the mid-1990s, the Philadelphia Mint was striking millions of quarters at a furious pace. Machines were pushed hard. Dies were overused. Quality control slipped just enough for rare, almost invisible mistakes to escape into circulation. And when those mistakes slipped out, history followed. Collectors didn't notice at first. Years passed. These quarters sat in jars, glove compartments, couch cushions. One collector later said he carried his for years, flipping it absent-mindedly, never knowing it was worth more than his car, more than his house, more than most people make in a lifetime. But then came the shock. At a small coin show, a dealer examined a 1994 P. Washington quarter under magnification. He froze. His hands literally stopped moving. Because what he saw wasn't normal, and it wasn't supposed to exist. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin showed signs of an extreme minting error, a flaw so rare that most collectors had only seen it in reference books. The kind of error that turns an everyday quarter into a legend. Word spread fast. Phones started ringing. Other collectors rushed home to check their change. Because suddenly, the idea of a quarter being worth $1 million no longer sounded crazy. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were buzzing. Auction houses began whispering numbers that didn't seem real. But here's the part most people don't realize. Not every 1994 P quarter is valuable. In fact, most are worth face value. The magic lies in tiny details, the kind you'd never notice without slowing down and really looking. One of the most valuable examples showed a dramatic off-center strike combined with die rotation. Washington's portrait wasn't where it should be. The rim looked wrong. The design felt unbalanced, almost unsettling. And that imperfection is exactly what made it priceless. But that's not the only version worth watching. Some 1994 P quarters escaped with double die errors. Look closely at the word liberty. Look at "I in God we trust." If the letters appear doubled, thick, or shadowed, not from damage, but from the die itself, your heart should start beating faster. Because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Then there are die cracks and retained cut errors. Massive cracks running through the coin like lightning frozen in metal. Raised blobs where metal shouldn't exist. These aren't scratches. They're mint-born scars. Proof that something went wrong at the exact moment this coin was created. And when collectors see those scars, they don't see damage. They see destiny. One auction record changed everything. A high-grade 1994 P. Washington quarter with a dramatic mint error and near-perfect preservation crossed the block. Bidding jumped fast. 10,000, 50,000, hundreds of thousands. When the hammer finally fell, the room went silent. The price shocked even seasoned experts. That sale rewrote the story of this quarter forever. But what happened next was even more unbelievable. Collectors started finding more. Not many, but enough to prove this wasn't a one-of-a-kind fluke. Every new discovery fueled the dream. Every story spread hope. One man's pocket change truly became a million-dollar miracle. And here's where your story could begin. To identify a potentially valuable 1994 P. Washington quarter, start with the mint mark. There shouldn't be one. Philadelphia quarters from this year have no mint mark at all. If you see a P, D, or S, it's not the one. Next, examine the strike. Is the design centered? Does Washington's face look shifted? Are parts of the rim missing or unusually thick? Off-center strikes are a massive red flag, in a good way. Then inspect the lettering under magnification. True doubling looks clean and rounded, not scraped or flat. Damage happens after the mint. Real doubled dies are born at the mint, and they look alive. Check for cracks, raised lines, or strange blobs of metal. Run your finger lightly over the surface. Mint errors are often raised, not carved in. Condition matters more than most people realize. A rare error in poor shape is exciting. A rare error in high grade can change your life. Never clean the coin. Never polish it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. If something feels off, trust that feeling. Have the coin authenticated by a professional grading service. That single step can turn doubt into proof. And remember this, every legendary discovery started with someone who almost spent the coin. Imagine this for a second. It's the year 2000. America is celebrating history with the brand new state quarters program, and Virginia is one of the first designs released. Millions of people handle these coins every single day. Gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines. Nobody suspects anything special. Nobody looks twice. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous and so powerful. Because while most people saw just another quarter, a few sharp-eyed collectors sensed something was off. Something wasn't right. Something felt rare in a way that couldn't be explained at first. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The 2000 P. Virginia quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility known for producing massive quantities of coins. Normally, high numbers mean low value. That's what everyone believed. Dealers shrugged. Cashiers tossed them into registers. Kids spent them on soda. But hidden inside this flood of ordinary quarters were a handful of coins that should never have existed in the condition they did. Collectors were shocked when pristine examples began surfacing with razor-sharp details, mirrored surfaces, and strange minting anomalies that defied expectations. These weren't just nice quarters. They were perfection trapped in pocket change. And perfection, in the coin world, can mean $1 million. One collector tells the story of dumping a jar of change onto his kitchen table late one night. He wasn't hunting for treasure. He was just bored. As the quarters clinked and rolled, one coin caught the light differently. It looked brighter, sharper, almost alive. He nearly ignored it. That single decision changed his life. But here's where the mystery deepens. Around the same time, rumors began spreading through collector circles. Whispers of Virginia quarters with extraordinary surfaces, coins with nearly flawless strikes, deep reflective fields, and details so crisp they looked engraved by hand. Dealers were skeptical until auctions started closing at numbers that made seasoned professionals sit back in their chairs. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A top-graded 2000p Virginia quarter appeared at auction, certified in an ultra-high mint state grade that almost never survived circulation. Bidding exploded. Phones rang. Collectors leaned forward. The final hammer price didn't just break expectations, it shattered them. Suddenly, a quarter most people wouldn't bend over to pick up was being talked about in the same breath as $1 million. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were scrambling. Everyone started checking their change. And yet, most people still don't know why this coin can reach such unbelievable value. The secret lies in a deadly combination of factors. First, the early state quarters were heavily circulated. People hoarded them, spent them, scratched them, and wore them down. Finding one in absolutely pristine condition is already rare. But then there's the strike quality. Some 2000p Virginia quarters were struck with exceptional pressure, creating bold details in Washington's hair and the colonial ship on the reverse that almost leap off the coin. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Certain examples show subtle mint errors or die characteristics that set them apart. Slight misalignments, unusual die polish lines, extra sharp rims. These tiny details don't scream at you. They whisper, and most people never hear them. Collectors were shocked to realize how many of these coins were destroyed in everyday use. Every soda purchase, every parking meter, every careless drop onto concrete erased potential fortune. That's why surviving examples in top condition are hunted like buried treasure. One dealer described holding a perfect Virginia quarter and feeling his hands shake. He knew what it meant. He knew how few were left. He knew that this tiny piece of metal could be worth more than some houses. In the right grade, with the right characteristics, the conversation shifts from hundreds to thousands to $1 million. And yet, the most terrifying part of this story is this. These coins are still out there. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As awareness grew, collectors began pulling rolls from banks, cracking open old mint sets, even digging through relatives' drawers. And every once in a while, lightning struck again. Another extraordinary example surfaced. Another life-changing discovery. Another reminder that history sometimes hides in plain sight. First, check the date. It must be 2000. Next, look for the P mint mark on the front, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then study the surfaces closely. You're looking for incredible shine, minimal marks, and sharp, bold details, especially in Washington's hair and the ship's sails. Any dullness, heavy scratches, or where it can destroy the value instantly. Most people make one fatal mistake. They assume all quarters are the same. They assume perfection doesn't matter. But in this case, perfection is everything. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The difference between face value and a life-changing discovery can be one glance, one decision, one moment of curiosity instead of indifference. Dealers know it. Collectors feel it. And somewhere right now, a forgotten jar of change is holding a secret that could rewrite someone's future. Right now, somewhere in America, a 2003 P Missouri State quarter could be sitting in a cup holder, a junk drawer, or the bottom of a change jar, completely ignored. Most people see it as just another ordinary state quarter. But seasoned collectors know something most people don't. A tiny group of these coins were born under strange conditions, surrounded by quiet mistakes, rushed production, and details so subtle they slip past almost everyone. And that's where the story gets dangerous, because once you know what to look for, you can never look at pocket change the same way again. The year was 2003. The state quarters program was in full swing, and America was obsessed. People were checking every quarter, saving rolls, hunting for errors without even realizing it. The Missouri quarter rolled off the presses at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying the image of Lewis and Clark, the Gateway Arch, and a promise of westward expansion. But behind those mint doors, something wasn't right. Collectors would later whisper that certain dies were wearing down far faster than expected. Pressure issues, alignment problems, Metal flow behaving strangely under intense speed. Most of the coins were normal, forgettable, spent without a second thought, but a handful weren't. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Years later, a collector in the Midwest claimed he pulled a strange Missouri quarter from a bankroll. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Same year, same design, same mint mark, or rather, the absence of one that told you it came from Philadelphia. But under magnification, the coin told a different story. The details looked wrong. Or maybe too right. The devices were thicker. The fields showed unusual texture. The edges hinted at a striking anomaly that shouldn't exist on a regular business strike. When he tilted the coin under light, the surfaces seemed alive, almost rippling, as if the metal had flowed in a way it wasn't supposed to. Dealers were skeptical. Until they weren't. Word spread quietly. No big headlines. No flashy auctions. Just phone calls. Private emails. Serious people asking serious questions. Because the coin showed signs consistent with rare die errors that, when authenticated, can explode in value. But here's the part most people don't know. Some of the most valuable coins in the world never appear in public auctions. They trade hands privately, silently. And when they do, the prices aren't always published. That's why stories began circulating about a 2003 Missouri quarter that crossed into the realm of $1 million. Collectors were shocked, because Missouri quarters were supposed to be common. Millions were minted. You could find them everywhere. But rarity isn't about how many were made. It's about how many survived with the right mistake. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Philadelphia Mint didn't use a mint mark in 2003. That's normal. But on some Missouri quarters, the lack of a mint mark wasn't the story. The story was in the strike itself. Look closely at the words E pluribus unum. On certain rare examples, the letters appear doubled, not in the sloppy way you'd expect from damage, but in a clean, mechanical way that suggests a doubled die. Now pause for a second. Because this is where people mess up, machine doubling is common and worthless. True doubled dies are rare and life-changing. The difference is night and day if you know what to look for. Rounded edges, strong separation lines, no flat, shelf-like appearance. And if that doubling shows up in the right places on the Missouri quarter, collectors stop breathing for a moment. But what happened next left experts speechless. Another example surfaced. Different state, same year, same design. And this one showed extreme die deterioration paired with what appeared to be an off-center strike that somehow still retained full design elements. That combination alone is rare. Add pristine condition, and the value jumps into a different universe. One dealer reportedly said, if this coin is real, it changes everything. Because high-grade error quarters from the state quarters era are notoriously difficult to find. Most circulated heavily. Most were abused. Finding one with dramatic errors and minimal, whereas like finding a winning lottery ticket after it's already been scratched. And yet, these coins were hiding in plain sight. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He didn't find it in an auction. He didn't inherit it. He didn't even collect quarters seriously at the time. He was just curious. He liked the Missouri design. Something told him to look closer. That feeling matters more than people realize, because every legendary coin discovery starts the same way, with someone paying attention when everyone else looks away. But what most people don't understand is that value isn't just about the error. It's about timing, condition, demand, and the story attached to the coin. When collectors believe a coin represents a once-in-a-generation mistake, prices stop making sense. That's how numbers like $1.9 million even enter the conversation. Now let's slow this down, because this is the part where you can actually change your life. Identify a potentially valuable 2003 Missouri quarter. Start with the basics. The date must be 2003. The state must be Missouri. There should be no mint mark, confirming it came from Philadelphia. If there is a D or S, walk away. Next, examine the strike quality. Look at the edges of the letters and numbers. Are they thick and rounded? Do they show separation instead of flat doubling? Pay special attention to the word liberty and the motto "In God we trust." Then move to the reverse. Lewis and Clark's details matter. The hairlines, the boat, the lettering around the edge. Any doubling, distortion, or unusual thickness could be a signal. Now tilt the coin. Rotate it under light. Look for unusual texture in the fields. Flow lines, orange peel surfaces. Anything that looks too strange to be normal but too precise to be damage. And here's the cliffhanger most people never see coming. Check the alignment. Flip the coin vertically. If the reverse doesn't line up correctly with the obverse, you may be holding a misaligned die strike. In extreme cases, that alone can push a coin into six figures. Combined with other errors, it can reach $1,000,000 territory. But condition is everything. A heavily worn error is interesting. A sharp, clean, high-grade error is history-making. This is why dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Not every Missouri quarter, only the right ones. The freaks. The mistakes that slipped through quality control and survived 2 decades unnoticed. Most people will spend them. Collectors will study them. One person will change their life. And that's the truth nobody wants to admit. The difference between spare change and a fortune often comes down to knowledge and courage. The courage to look twice. The courage to get a coin authenticated. The courage to believe that something small can be worth more than a house. Somewhere, right now, a 2003 Missouri quarter